Mental Health Monday.
Another episode of Mental Health Monday. Another episode of Mental Health Monday. Mental Health Monday. Of your client, like when people reach out to you, they may say it's this topic, but you as the therapist, you'll sit in the session, you're like, actually, it's this topic.
Oh, yeah. That has happened. I was like, oh, man, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
But, you know, oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's happened. And I think that with that, I try to, you know, meet them where they are at. It depends on how deep we in sessions, how many we've done, where if I want to say, well, I'm going to shift this to this, because this is probably the most, you know, personal thing, or most thing I see is a issue. But at the same time, if they're not ready for that, I got to go with what they, you know, want to do. Secondly, sometimes I've made the mistake of working on something that I think is more prevalent or is more pressing, but that's not the thing that they want to work on. Yeah. And it gets, the signals get mixed and crossed. You know, so you say you came in for this, but you're pressing this. And I think that needs to be addressed. I'm going to lean on that, but you said you want to work on that. Yeah. And then it gets crossed. So, okay. Yeah. I'm not a perfect therapist at all.
I think it'd be, if you were perfect, we probably wouldn't have met. Right. Or it would have made sense. I'd have been like, nah, man, you a little bit too buttoned up. That's just the most polite way to put it.
Me being buttoned up is not one thing that you never see together.
Just, you know, your button's a little bit too tight. When it comes to the world of the work that you do, what are 3 values that you've moved forward with in terms of your patients?
Ooh, goodness gracious. Patience is still a thing I work on. I'm not the most patient person at times. I'm just not. And that's something I'm always going to be continuing to work on, I know. Because I like things done a certain way. And I like things done on a way that makes sense. Right? And I'm a person that likes to agitate and change and create and fix. And if it's not a certain way, then I get upset. So, but with that, I've learned to practice patience in a way that says, you know, hey, it doesn't always have to be perfect, right? It doesn't always have to be perfect. Also, hey, you've done this from the ground up. I need you to be more present with what you have accomplished versus what you're trying to seek to accomplish. And lastly, sun got to come back up Sunday. Yeah. So it might not be right now where you want it now was urgent, but you know, sun gotta go down, sun gotta come back up the next day.
Would you say you've had a better relationship with imposter syndrome because you've accomplished so much, or is there still a part that's like, I have more to prove to myself?
Good question. Oh, that's a good question. Juice is a very good question. I love these questions. Man, this is why I wanted to get back on more positive guests. I'm tired of asking questions. I want people to ask me questions. Man, that question came up, actually, about that, how you deal with imposter syndrome going into the academic space. And I told him, I said, you know, of course nerves is there, but, you know, your environment makes sense. So I get on campus, right, and I'm supported and surrounded by nothing but black professionals, black excellence.
In the mental health space.
In the mental health space.
Within that 4%. Because the number is still 4%, right?
Yeah, it's like 4%, still 4%.
That's crazy.
Right? And with doctors. And it was like, oh, this is fire. Like, and then, you know, but in that, man, I think with entrepreneurship, some things, even though I still got, my patience is always a work in progress, it's some things I'm not going to let get to me as much, because I was saying in my training I did last week, you've never had to figure out how you're going to pay business expenses and personal expenses because a check has been held up. Yeah. or funds have been tied up for whatever reason. That's a critical thinking skill or a patience level skill that you just can't get that on the fly. Right, you don't get that.
Just as important, understanding if your business makes below a certain amount, maybe you don't need to be running a business. Right. And maybe you may need to be a community person. So like, for example, you know, I've done the hoodies, the shirts, everything else. but my number was always like a little bit under 5,000. Right. And I was like, well, a lot of these companies that you reach out to get your stuff done, no one's asking for your tax number. That means that you make below a certain amount where your tax number doesn't have to be involved. So you may want to just do business with these two people. Your cousin that does your taxes, let them know, hey, this is business, but it was just done on the credit card, because it's not like we're making a bunch of money and that's where the money went back to.
Right.
And however that looks on the taxes, since you file all your taxes together, just do it that way, since you always keep it below a certain amount. Because remember, the brand that I built, the information is more important than the clothing. The clothing just happens to be there.
Yeah.
So by the middle of October, my clothing is going to be sold in DC and New York, which is dope, because that's like you're expanding, but you're still selling a limited amount of clothing and money being made. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, what they do on your taxes is, how much did you pay to get the stuff done? That gets deducted. All right, how much did you make? All right, how much was that tax? That gets deducted. All right, how much did you make in profit?
Right.
All right, do you have a number of that? Cool. That gets deducted. How much did travel cost? Oh, you travel back and forth to New York, DC, all these places, do events. That gets deducted. Oh, well, it looks like you only owe 4 and some change because you haven't made any money in profit. That's big money. Because most of that is production money, especially when you spend all this money on all these new cameras and everything else.
That's expense.
Including your cell phone.
Right.
So when you look here, this is about a little bit under $6,000 worth of equipment, and that's not including the audio or the lights.
Right.
But like, you set it up and they see where the investments is going. So even if you get investigated, it's like, nah, he spent the money on the stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that definitely is a piece of that. It's understanding.
I say that to say not everyone has to have a business.
True. But see, everybody like, it's different varying levels of business.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? You can be self-employed, entrepreneurship fully. You know, you could be entrepreneurship where you're still working 9 to 5 but got the side hustle on the side. You know what I'm saying? Or you can kind of contract yourself out.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what's best for you, though. You know what I'm saying? And so I can honestly say, if stuff go left, I know I can be self-employed. That's one of my goals I've always had. I've done it. You know, things have shifted and changed with my family and stuff like that, so I had to make a little different decision and pivot. But if it go left,
the skill set's the skill set.
I can jump back. I don't have no problem going back. We'll figure it out, you know, and we can do it a better way.
Yeah.
So, and it's my second business, really. My first business was working on cars, like custom cars, stuff like that. So now, you know, just get that learning opportunity. And so
the third one's gonna be coffee.
Third one's gonna be coffee.
Yeah, third one's gonna be coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
then the fourth one's gonna be reseller of stuff.
We'll see.
Yeah, just
see
if you have enough storage space.
We'll
for that.
see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where it's been at, man. Just trying to, you know, you gotta be knowledgeable about that. I did pretty good in private practice. I was getting trending up to 6 figures.
Yeah. But then you saw the sacrifice that would come with trending in that direction.
Well,
according to what you had, though,
I was trending 6 figures. The only reason they got cut was because my son got born.
That would have taken away.
Yeah, that would have taken away. So that's the only. But so I was like, okay, I know I can. It's like you know, and I made some mistakes along the way. You know what I'm saying? We got to talk about business taxes here. Taxes, you can't run away from taxes.
You can't.
But it's just, you know, and then having an office space, letting that go, it was too expensive. You know, just learning on the fly and not having a template. And so that kind of circling back to that question around imposter syndrome, it just reinforced, like, brother, you can do what you want to do. You just got to put your time and effort to it. And which kind of got me back into working out again because I had got complacent with that.
Man, you see, I've been sore the whole interview.
Yeah.
You can tell when your boy's sore, he's just moving around a little bit.
He's like, ooh, that's this little too
like,
tight.
ooh, that thing tight. All right, cool.
Hit home too much.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, bro, if you put, and I've always said this, but I was like, boy, if you put in the time and the effort and energy as much as you do of the work that you do, you could easily get back into shape or stay in the gym, be healthy. You can do that. You know what you're doing. And so me personally, I know too also, I like a challenge.
Yeah.
And so for me, business and running that and figuring out was a challenge. to let me know I can do it. I'm capable. And now it's just like, okay, well, I can figure it out. And so I think for me, imposter syndrome at this point has been diminished to the point where it's like, why not me?